Hello, everybody. Welcome. Let's go Broncos. They won the first game of the season. Time for another episode of the Let's Talk Broncos podcast. You might recognize unfamiliar face next to me. This is Jacob Romano. I should use this hand, I guess. Jacob Romano, one of our newest faces here, Let's Talk Broncos. He's one of our writing contributors. We're going to have him hopefully more on the show a good bit to talk some Broncos with us this season. Knows a good bit of ball. You can find him over on Twitter at JTR_14, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
sweet. Find him over there. Find him on letstalkbroncos.com with some great writing. But yeah, take it away, man. What was your initial thoughts about that game we just saw?
Man, it was just so exciting to finally see the Broncos play, man. All this long summer that we've been waiting, all the training camp. It was cool to finally see them go out there. But I also thought at the same time it looked like a preseason game. There was ups and downs, lots of penalties, that sort of thing. So it'll be good to kind of look back on the film and see what we need to work on before week one.
We got a super chat right off the bat, and I'm with you. Definitely some sloppiness, but I think a lot for Broncos country to be excited
A
about.
lot to be excited about. A lot to be excited about.
We got a super chat from across the pond, though. Max Power saying, question to Jacob Romano. Do you admit that Zach Wilson looked incredible? Also, will you be eating toad in the hole for being wrong about him? What
Oh
say
my
you?
gosh. Yeah, I know the person who sent this in. Yeah, I thought Zach Wilson looked good, for what it was worth, but he also did look like the third string quarterback as well. There was a couple misses here and there, but not as chaotic as it could have looked, looking back at his Jets days. So there was some encouraging things there. I think ultimately they'll try to keep him on the practice squad, though.
Yeah, and I think they should be able to do that. You look at
Yeah.
what they got him for. The Jets were begging anyone to take him off their hands. The Broncos ultimately get him for a late round pick swap, and the Jets eat half of Zach Wilson's salary in that deal. That speaks volumes as to how this guy is viewed around the league. The Broncos now are also going to be the team that's most familiar with him. I would be very surprised if some teams like, yes, we need that guy on the active roster. They can probably sneak him onto their practice squad. And I think Zach Wilson will want to stay around and try and continue to build this relationship, whatever he's got going with Sean Payton. But what you talked about, him looking great yet still being the third quarterback, kind of leads me into my first stock up. I'm going to say Sean Payton. And there were some sloppy elements, so I could definitely hear some criticism for him too. But last year, I think it was just a little easy to lose the plot because that was not a Sean Payton offense. It was so pared down. They couldn't run so much of the passing game concepts they wanted to do. The run game was disjointed because you had pieces that didn't fully fit together, although there was a good bit of talent up front. And beyond that, the run game was disjointed because teams knew how limited the passing game was, and we're just going to dare the Broncos to pass it on them, and we're going to load the box up. What we saw today was more of a Sean Payton offense, and I'm hyped about it. Again, this is a offensive play caller that, for 5 weeks when it was Teddy Bridgewater and Taysom Hill in the lineup, had a top 3 offense in the NFL by, EPA per play. He can cook stuff up when you're not limiting the menu to such a ridiculous extent like it was under Russ. And I think that's what we saw today. Something Joey's been saying throughout every camp I've gone to with him this year, just like, wow, it looks so much better. Just the operation of the quarterbacks. All of us are used to just showing up and having there being like a lot of miscues. And there just hasn't been those, even from like Zach Wilson's going to have his Zach Wilson moments with like crazy decisions, but not the miscues of like not knowing what the play was or anything. He did have the one where he lined up in shotgun when it was supposed to be, or lined up under center when it was supposed to be in shotgun. But we're used to seeing a handful of those every practice. I can only think of one out of all the practices I've been to there. The run game looked great. I thought we saw really creative play design. The Bo Nix's first touchdown there to Marvin Mims, I thought was a beautifully designed RPO, really clever stuff, how they're using the motion there and Mims's speed to create an easy pass or like easy opening. Mims still had to launch it in there. He did just that. So first stock up for me is Sean Payton.
Yeah, absolutely. No, because like you said, that the offense last year was not Sean Payton's offense. Like if you take the strengths of Sean Payton's offense, it's short to intermediate throws, quick drop back, get the ball up quickly. Russell Wilson's whole game revolved around extending the play and trying to play, backyard football in the back. Like it was just never really going to work. And like you could see, like the timing like was off. Like Russ could not hit those short throws. Bo hit them beautifully, and even more importantly, Bo had really good pocket presence. Like he was able to evade the pocket very well, extend it, but like not run out and disrupt like the flow of the play at all. And so, yeah, absolutely. This is Sean Payton's offense for sure was on full display, and he's going to have a bag of tricks this season, no doubt.
Absolutely. Oh man, there's a lot I'm excited about there. But give me,
I
give me your
know.
first stock up. Who was looking great to you today?
So right off the bat, the run defense, because this is considering that they didn't even have Zach Allen or John Franklin Myers out there, and they were stuffing the Colts running plays every single time. Like it wasn't even just the D linemen; like the linebackers were getting active. They were hitting their gaps. Like they were swarming around the ball every single play, and that was an area of concern. I mean, I'm pretty sure that we ranked like 28th per in EPA run per play as a defense last year. And so it's noticeable that even beyond getting John Franklin Myers, like just the upgrades alone with like Angelo Blackson and Malcolm Roach, and maybe even just the coaching entering the second season with Vance Joseph, it's already helping everything kind of gel together in that regard.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick. It really did stand out today. And with no Zach Allen and John Franklin Myers, just like you said, that is so impressive, so promising to see. Malcolm Roach making crazy tackles with his helmet torn off. I mean, that was sweet. And they haven't even added Uwazurike into the mix, who
No.
who knows whether or not Uwazurike makes the roster, but that is another piece they can at least get a look at. And this Colts offensive line was really good last year. 2 years ago, the last time Broncos country saw it, it was a mess. But last year, it took a huge leap. It was a top 10 line in the league. And yeah, I thought they did really well. I was a little worried about the lack of like pressure creation I felt early on.
Yeah.
Want to see a little more from the defensive front there. But Vance Joseph's going to be a guy who creates pressure with his blitz packages. You're not going to see a lot of that in preseason. The fact that this defense that was, to your point, so rough against the run last year, take a big step up against a dang good running team. Like Jonathan Taylor was out there today. Who else? Trey Sermon. They had everyone out there. I was really impressed with how the Broncos held up against them.
Absolutely.
You know what? And I saw the opportunity to get into Sean Payton. I kind of buried the lead here. We got to talk about Bo Nix. I imagine he's a stock up for both of
Yes,
us here. Tell me,
absolutely.
what did you see from Bo Nix today?
You know, like I said, he just looked comfortable. Like he did not look like a rookie quarterback, and that's what we were expecting when we drafted him. Like there was maybe some moments here and there were some jitters, like in the pocket, and I think he had a fumbled snap at one point. But other than that, like not only were the plays actually going downfield compared to the first team where Stidham was kind of just checking down the whole time, but like he looked confident in doing it. Like there wasn't too much shakiness going on at all, and like he was extending plays and like it was just it looked so much more diverse right out the gate, and like I love to see that. And like you said, like you can tell that Sean Payton is excited just calling plays with this guy because he knows that he can properly run them. He can stay in the pocket long enough for things to develop downfield. And so he looked like a veteran out there, and I loved it. And also we got to see his legs a little bit too, a little bit of designed runs. So I can't wait to see how they open it up in the regular season.
Yeah, man, it looked good. It was clean. It was kind of the Bo Nix profile we were promised. 6 yards per attempt, 15 of 21 for 125 yards. Just easy. I mean, just exactly what you want to see from the guy. Again, all the quarterbacks were good today. But Bo Nix was just money. There was maybe some little accuracy hiccups here or there, especially early on. I thought there were a couple passes on like that first drive that were a little off target. Not terrible misfires, but there was one I remember that just like dirted in front of a receiver.
To
But
Dulcich, right?
yes, that one. And after that, though, man, we see him just answer so many questions for me. And I guess answer is maybe not the right word, but show glimpses of alleviating concerns with him coming out. The concerns in his prospect profile are going to be, his aggressiveness, his ability to
Right.
play make. Is he just like this system quarterback? Brock Purdy, Tua Tagovailoa were popular comps for the guy. And then on that first drive, you see him, pressure's right in his face. He's fading away from it, makes a quick out route throw off his back foot, and it's boom, right on the money, exactly where it needs to be. I love seeing that.
Right.
The first big completion, right? The first completion, rather, of his NFL career. He's rolling left, throws left, doesn't have any of the leverage from his body to get that throw across. And it's money to Cortland Sutton. Sutton was well open on the sideline, but still, just like that's not a super easy throw to make, and he delivered it perfectly. The running stuff you highlighted, like he showed better wheels in that game than I thought he was going to have. We saw some of the running in training camp, and I was thinking it was going to, functional mobility, but not, something you can lean on that often, kind of like what we saw from Russ on those read options in Denver, where it was like, that's a fun curveball. You can have that in your playbook, but I don't know how often you can go to that. He showed some real wheels out there. And then the touchdown to Mims, like he zips that ball. That's what I'm talking about and that's not the best example. We're not talking like across the sideline to the hash, though there was one of those. He has a sideline throw where he goes to the or a sidearm throw where he throws it to the opposite hash, and that was on the money. Like there were a lot of moments in there. Again, and we need to see more. This is a preseason game, 21 pass attempts, but even still, in such a small sample size, there were a good handful of moments where I'm like, hell yeah, that's what I needed to see more of, to think that the ceiling might be there to compete with these awesome quarterbacks in the AFC West.
Right. And what was so encouraging too is I think even some of the lowlights that you mentioned were just due to like jitters, like rookie, like it's his first game. Like a lot of it was had to do with like his footwork. And so then he was rushing into the throw and maybe it wasn't so good. Like there wasn't any sense when watching him where it's like, oh, this guy does not have it yet. Like he does not have this offense down. It wasn't like watching Paxton Lynch or anything like that. Like I would feel very comfortable with him starting week one, even just based off of this one performance alone.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of comfortability, I think he's definitely ahead of where Paxton Lynch ever was. I think he might be ahead of where Drew Lock ever was as a Denver Broncos quarterback. And, Drew Lock had some very special flashes. I'm not the biggest Lock fan, but I'm not even trying to dunk on the guy here. Just to say, Bo Nix was so poised and just like calm, cool, knew his reads, knew where to go with the football. And just it never felt too big from when pressure came. I felt he was really good at feeling that pressure. There was one, I think it was his first or second drive. There's like a looping pressure comes off his blind side, and he recognizes it, knows, there's no one over on that blind side now, scrambles and picks up, a 7 or so yard gain. I was really happy with what they saw. I don't want to get too high on a preseason game, but I think the Broncos might be out of the wilderness finally.
Yeah, that if everyone in the chat, you need to pound that Vegas over because they are definitely winning more than 5.5 games. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I'm with that right now too. With the Sean Payton coaching, this is going to be a good enough offense that I think they're going to be right at that like 7-10 mark again. And then let's draft another good receiver and let's go.
Yes.
Drew Lock makes Zach Wilson look like Patrick Mahomes. That seems a little extreme, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Jacob, I know we both have a lot more stock ups than stock downs. Do you have a stock down you want to get to, or do you have a stock up? Okay, give me your stock down.
Yes. So there's a couple stock downs still. One I thought actually was Stidham. And it's interesting because like I saw mixed feedback from Stidham on Twitter. Like some thought that he did a really good job still just operating within the confines of the offense and whatnot. But like with me, like I didn't see someone where if he were to start a couple games because Bo Nix just isn't ready yet, I didn't see someone where I would feel comfortable like we would be favored in the game at all. It was a lot of checkdowns. And for a veteran, I thought that he stared down his first read quite a lot too. And, that's something that Drew Lock never got over. And he still is dealing with that with the Giants, And so he's definitely like, it was to the point where like with Nix, he's not quite like solidified yet, but he's getting better, and you can clearly see that, and there's hope. Whereas with Stidham, it was more of like all my hopes that he could be better than what we've seen kind of got shattered.
There, doing it to myself. I think you're dead on. It was like it's definitely a step down for him because you see again just I think the snaps were like 35 to 11, something like that in terms of throwing the ball.
Yeah.
Nix had 3 times the attempts of Stidham. I think I'd be very surprised if the competition, goes any different way at this point. And yeah, just he's a very conservative quarterback. I don't think you're going to see like a very high-end processor. I think he's a fine backup, but he is only going to give you what's in the structure of the offense. He had that one scramble where I was like, oh, his wheels are still, better than you expect. But even then it's like it's 3-yard gains, 4-yard gains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminded me a lot. Oh, sorry. It reminded me a lot of like all of the quarterbacks that we've had over the past 8 years, because what would always happen is once there was like that one penalty, right, the drive was just over. Like once we got a holding or a PI or a offensive pass interference or something, like it was just over, and you knew that the quarterback was not able to dig you out of that hole. And that kind of happened in this game. There was quite a few penalties, and as soon as it got to like 3rd and 20 or whatever it was, Stidham just checked it down to the running back, and it's like, okay, like so we basically have no chance of even trying to do something on this drive. Whereas I feel like with Nix, you have more confidence that he can kind of get you out of some holes.
Yeah, I think that's well put. And Nix, we saw more of that creation ability. Plus, again, there's just the upside of the future and everything. After this game, I really don't see why you would have Stidham start week 1. We'll see next week. Next week, it could be really ugly from Nix and really great from Stidham, and I think that might be enough. But I don't know why it would reverse at this point. It just the one thing you wanted to safeguard yourself from was like that Paxton Lynch factor, like the game's moving way too fast for this guy. We don't want to throw him out there. You saw enough in this game that I think that concerns out the window. You feel pretty good there.
Yeah.
We got Joey in the comments. Thank you, Joey, for the super chat, telling everybody to like the stream. Please do, everybody. Great way to support the show. We're always very appreciative of that. And we've got a supporter of the show, Vagisil Burgundy, giving Joey a hard time, saying, hey, Joey, did you give every quarterback an A today? Joey says, I've sent 20 super chats. Bree plus Zach equals 0. That's true. Thank you to Joey there. I'll get on my super chat game here shortly. Oh, love when my camera goes out of focus for no reason. All right, we'll see if that fixes itself. If not, I'm going to be blurry. Sorry, everybody. I don't know what to do about it.
Come on, Zach.
I know it's terrible. The autofocus is doing me so bad right now. There we go. Okay, so Broncos. My stock down. We have a comment about it here. It could be Samaje Perine. I'm going with just ball security in general. Estime had a fumble 6. Lucas Kroll had like a really terrible fumble. Perine batting the ball up in comic fashion for an interception. Kenny Moore the second was bad. The ball security was so rough. If the Broncos had a cleaner game on the penalty front and on the turnover front, this game's probably a blowout. It's probably more like 41-20 or something like that instead of the 34-30 game we saw. And the Broncos can't be affording to making those mistakes. Like I'm very optimistic about what we saw this year, but you're still going to have a rookie quarterback. Like you're going to have a relatively slim margin for error. You shouldn't, I don't know, be putting that quarterback in such a hole with these ridiculous penalties and just really ugly turnovers.
Yeah, no, I mean, Perine better start looking at places in either Dallas or even to go back in Cincy, because he's definitely like the comment said, it's unacceptable for the margins to be so thin in the running back room already because there's so much talent. For him to already be making mistakes like this in the preseason, like that was his one thing last year that he did. He was a receiving back on 3rd down for us, and so if he can't even prove that he's ultra consistent in that regard, then I don't see a way that he makes the team.
Totally. And it's like McLaughlin has a good day. That's one of the guys you're competing with. Blake Watson
Yeah.
has a touchdown. There's a guy you're competing with. Tyler
Tyler
Beatty has
Beatty.
a good
Yeah.
he has a touchdown. There's a guy you're competing with. So I think Samaje Perine, I think you were the one in the chat saying he's going to be a Cowboy. My money's on
Yeah.
Cincy. I bet one of us are right. I bet one of it maybe Chargers. I think they maybe have a chance to. He is going to be on a 53-man roster for a team that's not Denver within the month. That'd be my bet. Stop giving him all the plays, like just he doesn't need to do that anymore.
Don't waste the reps anymore. Give them to Esteman.
Yeah, honestly, they could. This is a situation where you could maybe do a vet a solid by being like, "Hey, you're not going to be making our final roster. Let's give you some time
to
find a home elsewhere, and get those young guys more reps." Sean Rundgren coming in with a super chat here. Want to make sure we grab that. Saying he missed the game. But did Bo look exceptional, or did the Broncos just throw a lot? To me, like exceptional might be a little strong. Yeah. I thought that was fantastic. And I will qualify and say Brandon Weeden belongs in like the preseason Hall of Fame. Like that guy was a great preseason quarterback. So who knows? Let's wait until the real bullets start firing. That's probably the best preseason Broncos quarterbacking I've seen in memory. I don't know, because I was Peyton Manning playing preseason snaps. Probably not. That was fantastic. He was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, what was so cool too is like it wasn't like it was like clearly designed plays to scheme receivers open or anything like that. Like he was just putting the ball exactly where it needed to be at all places. So like I don't know if exceptional is the right word, but like he was just super, super efficient. And we know that in this Sean Payton offense, that's exactly what you need.
Yeah, I think you're dead on. Man, I'm excited for it. So give me your next stock up. Who's another player that stood out to you?
Yes. Okay, there's a couple to choose from here. I'm going to go with Riley Moss because I remember there was a couple practices ago, it might have been last week, where all the corners just struggled, right? And that's when, especially in the group chat, we were all so like down on it. Like we were like, oh man, all of the corners are going to suck. They're going to pick on that cornerback 2 spot all along. And then he comes out today, and I think he looks pretty good. I mean, the only bad play I can really remember was that comeback route that he led a completion on. And in man-to-man, that's going to be really hard to really stick with them the whole time anyway. And so, with Moss, like you could see the instincts. You could see that like once he knows where to go, he locks in. Like he he has really good closing speed. He knows how to read the quarterback's eyes. It just comes down to man-to-man reps. He doesn't have a lot of experience in it. He wasn't asked to do man-to-man a lot in Iowa. So that's just going to come with time. You would hope that he had gotten those snaps last year, but this is where he's at. And I thought despite all the circumstances surrounding him, he looked good.
Yeah, I fully agree there. And again, the bar is be Fabian Moreau from last year, and I'd be thrilled.
Right, yeah.
But I was terrified. I was terrified because I was there at that practice, and it was like, everyone is cooking. I mean, Greg Dulcich got lined up with him during like the 11-on-11s period, just because like the formation they were running, he was kind of like the X isolated as a receiver on one side, so he had Moss on him, and he hit him with like a little shimmy shake and left him in the dirt. And I was like, whoa, if you've got a tight end, like Greg Dulcich is a pretty dang athletic, fluid tight end. Nonetheless, if you're a cornerback and you have a tight end dropping you like that, I'm deeply worried. And tonight he came out and that made me look like a bit of a fool, and I'm happy for it. I had some really scary visions of like, man, this is going to be a year where Patrick Surtain doesn't get targeted at all, because they're just going to be throwing the ball 400 times at the other side of the field, and it's going to be wildly frustrating. Like I can think of some years in like the pre-Vaughn days when like the Broncos defense was really bad, and you'd have like just like Dre Bly getting burned every
Tony Carter play. All the time,
like madness. And that's what I thought was coming down the pipe. And after today, again, we need to see a lot more. After today, I'm feeling better about that, because not only Moss, I thought Damari Mathis had a great day. He got burned a time or two, had that PBU on, I think it was the first drop back of the game. Could have easily been an interception.
It should have been an interception.
Yeah, that's why they
Mhm.
play defense, to do the old cliche, but got in the right place, made a good play on the ball. And that was Anthony Richardson. It wasn't like he right, wasn't it? Or maybe that was the Joe Flacco
Yes,
drop
it
back.
was.
But yeah, so that's a starting NFL quarterback he's making that play on. And starting receivers, Colts had all their ones out there. So and I think he had another PBU later in the game. Moss had a couple in his own right. Definitely
Yes.
feeling more optimistic about what they have there. And then Levi Wallace is going to be a fine veteran insurance plan behind that group.
Yeah. Yeah. I would expect Wallace to be like a slightly better version of Moreau last year. You know, you worry a little bit about like the long speed with him, but he's really technically sound. He's got good ball skills. But Moss, like they need that pick to hit because they traded 2 third rounders for him. And so, that's the one thing about Sean Payton. He's always going to be very aggressive in the draft, even when the roster is not that talented and kind of needs more draft picks. He still is going to trade him away. So they need him to turn into a stud at cornerback too. And this was a great sign, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree, especially with the 2 third round pick investments. Like they need to get something out of him.
Mm-hmm.
Looks more likely that will happen. Stock up for me. I'll throw a mini one out while we're on the defensive backfield. PJ Locke, I thought, had a nice game, making plays in the run game. You were talking about the run defense. He popped a couple times there, making
Yes,
plays in
he did.
coverage as well. They're going to need him back there, with Brandon Jones being beat up and Caden Stern's now gone. That room is very
Mm-hmm.
shallow. Locke, in my opinion, is the most reliable guy in that room, and they're gonna need him to step up in a big way. What I wanted to shout out though is a group. I like, fudging the rules
Yeah.
on these and saying the Broncos 2024 draft class. I feel great about it. We hit on Bo Nix already.
Yes.
Feel awesome there. Audric Estime looked great. Yes, he had that really ugly fumble, but the power he ran with, like he was delivering exactly what I think the Broncos want him to be delivering. Blake Watson had some really nice moments. Of course, the rookie Devon Villay, I thought looked promising. Only had the 1 reception, but I think he drew 2 defensive pass interference
Yeah, he
penalties.
drew a PI.
That
Mm-hmm.
was pretty valuable. Who else am I missing? Troy Franklin didn't have a big day, but then on defense, Jonah Ellis had a big
Jonah
pressure
Ellis.
that
Yes.
led to an interception. He was sweet. Shoot, I'm thinking. I'll have
Abrams
to look
drain.
at the
He had
rookie.
the interception at the very end. Abrams drain.
Yes, Abrams Drain. You're right. Yes, he had the big defensive play at the end. Admittedly, my stream was bugging out towards that. So some of those plays down the stretch I was missing out on, but Abrams Drain came up big. Yeah, it was good. Even Tillman had a sack and tackle for a loss, who's kind of
Yeah.
a rookie in a backwards way. The Broncos need to be finding some young players to help them out as they go through this rebuild. After today, I
Mm-hmm.
think you're maybe feeling good. Oh, and then Devon Key had the interception, or had a couple big defensive plays. So
Yeah,
yeah,
he was with the starters very early on. Like at the beginning of the field, it was him and PJ Locke. It wasn't like JL Skinner or anyone like that. So I thought that was pretty notable, especially with releasing Caden Stearns. He has a good chance of making this team.
yeah, I think he's going to. I think he might even again, seeing him start, it makes you wonder
Yeah.
how high up in the rotation he is. I don't think him being in front of goodness, sorry, him being in front of what's his face means nothing. The Jail Skinner, sorry,
Hmm.
not already forgetting the guy. Joey says Bailey even looked good on special teams.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, he might have a chance. Got burned on a pass
He's one to
play,
keep
but
an eye on for sure. He has good athleticism for the position.
agree. And they need some help at linebacker. Geek
Yeah.
Bronx says stock up Riley Dixon. I agree. Didn't see much of him today, but he was the only punter that saw work, I believe, or at least he had the first 2. He was the only punter that saw work while I was watching before my stream bugged out. Yeah, he was the only punter that saw work today, got both inside the 20. He's probably going to hold off Trenton Gill, the challenger.
Mhm.
Yeah, what did you think about the rookies? Who stood out to you today?
Um, well, we talked a lot about Bo, but I thought Ellis looked great because he was one when we drafted him. I was kind of like, because I thought that we needed more of like a bigger edge rusher that could help against the run, and he was sub 250 or something like that. But as soon as I turned the tape on, I didn't realize how good of a pass rusher he is. Like outside of Latu, he's probably the second best in the class. Like he had so much in his arsenal, and you could kind of see flashes of that tonight. And what I thought was interesting too is he dropped a lot in coverage, and he didn't necessarily look terrible doing it. Like he looked fluid. Like his athleticism is very much clear. Besides him, I'm not as high on Estime, I think, as you may have maybe after today, because I thought like he was getting hyped up for his size, and we all saw the tape at Notre Dame. I mean, he was electric and he was explosive, and he didn't look explosive to me today. He kind of just looked like a bruiser, and that's fine. Like that's still probably more valuable than P Ryan at this point, which is why I think he'll take his spot. But I was kind of hoping for a little more like dynamic play there, because if Javonte comes back healthy and Estime comes back and Estime plays up to what we think he is, that could be like your Kamara and Ingram right there back in the New Orleans days with Payton. So I hope to see a little more explosiveness out of him next week. Abrams Drain looked good, and Vele, that's another one that like we may not have like insane production out of Vele. Like he may not have like 100 yards receiving in a preseason game, but it's more so like we have to look back in the tape on that, because he looks so much like Tim Patrick. I mean, he's wearing his old number.
And the 81.
Yeah, exactly. Like he looks just like him. He runs routes like him. He's tall. He's got good length. Like I'm really, really excited about him. I think he'll be the fifth receiver right after the top four going into the regular season. So it was good to see flashes from all the rookies.
Yeah, I think you're fully right on Belay. I think it's very meaningful that like Troy Franklin was one of the last receivers to come in. He was one of the first. I think, and Franklin, they're not going to cut him, but I think the gap between those two is very, very wide right now.
I mean, he is like 40 years old, so I would hope that there's a little gap there. But
fair. But I'll say I think if Franklin was the 7th round pick, or maybe even if he was drafted where he was, but he had no connection to Bo Nix, I wouldn't be surprised if we were talking about like Troy Franklin on the hot seat right now. He's in trouble. Who else do you have as a stock up or down? I think I'll give you one more stock up or down. I'll hit one more, and then we'll get out of here.
Okay, so a stock up that I thought actually might surprise you is Cody Barton. And it's not necessarily that he like played out of his mind or anything like that. Like he didn't look like prime Luke Kuechly or anything, but right off the gate he was with the starters. And I thought he looked comfortable in coverage. And one of his like downsides, I think, was that he wasn't the best with run fits. And I thought he did a solid job. Like I said, the run defense as a general was amazing, but he wasn't like missing a lot of assignments in the run game or anything like that. And he stayed in a long time. Like he was there until like we didn't see Jonas Griffith until like the third quarter. So if there's a true competition going on there, it sounds like Barton's in the lead and that he may get the first crack next to Alex Singleton.
I think you're right. I think he's going to be the starter right now. I thought Jonas Griffith had a few bumpy moments as well today.
Yes.
Especially in coverage, which I think is going to help out Cody Barton. I agree with you. I thought he really stood out. He, and he had to make a case for himself. I think he had a bumpier training camp. I think he kind of entered it as maybe not the unquestioned starter, but a heavy favorite to be starting opposite Alex Singleton. And he had more of a so-so camp. Jonas Griffith has been dynamite in training camp, and it made it more of a discussion. After today, I think Cody Barton's probably pulled back in front, so I think that's a great pick by you there.
Definitely. And one thing, too, it's like Griffith, even if he doesn't start, I still think he'll have a role with this team because he is by far the most athletic linebacker that we have. And I remember back in like 2021, it was like years ago when he was healthy. But back when he was last healthy, he was a really good blitzer too. Like he was able to go create a lot of pressure up the middle. And we know Vance Joseph loves to blitz. So even though the stock up is up with Barton and down with Griffith, I wouldn't be too down on Griffith.
Same. Yeah, he's at worst their best special teams linebacker. He's actually got a home hanging around on the roster. And who knows? Alex Singleton got his whole position because Jonas Griffith, or I think it was Josie Jewell, goes down with an injury, and Jonas Griffith is having some bumpy play. Singleton comes in, and then when Josie Jewell's healthy, they sit Griffith down and not Singleton, and the rest is history. I wouldn't be surprised if that story reverses itself this season at some point. We do have a couple comments about Marvin Mims. Burgundy, I'll say, says Marvin Mims stock seems down. Joey Richards saying, what do you guys make of Mims playing later into the third? Mims, I think, had a fairly pedestrian camp. That was something Joey and I were talking about last
Yeah.
night. What do you think about Mims's showing today? Yeah, or how concerned are you?
I think he's like stock slightly leaning down, but not down yet because he hasn't done anything like disastrous to like make him like the fifth receiver or anything like that. But he's another one where he's going into his second year. You were hoping that he was going to kind of break out, turn into maybe like a Brandon Cooks or Tyler Lockett style deep threat for us. And so far in camp, it looks like he still has a ways to go. I'm not sure. You guys have been at camp more than me, but I don't know what the deal is. Maybe is it his route running or is it just his ball skills? Something is just not quite clicking there yet. And so, I hope that continues to get better throughout the season. But I agree, Joey, like him playing that late is not a great sign because that Josh Reynolds wasn't on the field at that time. Tim Patrick wasn't on the field at that time. And those guys both have equal concerns of their own. So it said something that Mims was still playing that late.
Yeah, and it's definitely worth monitoring. I think Rock has it perfect here. We keep holding Mims stock, but we're monitoring the situation.
Yes.
I'm going to steal Joey's take here from that. We were catching up last night talking about some football, and he was just saying, I was concerned to go into Broncos camp and Mims wasn't lighting it up. Joey's been banging the Marvin Mims drum this offseason, and it's like, this is the time for you to be lighting it up. And it never felt, and I'd agree, I was there a few more days than him. I never had a day of camp where I'm like, whoa, Marvin Mims is everywhere today. There were moments I think where Sutton was standing out, Valet was standing out or whatever. And I don't know if Mims ever had that moment. I do think, and we saw the package out there some today where it was Patrick, Reynolds, and Sutton. I think Mims is probably one of the top three receivers on this team. But if someone was to like come back in time from week 18 and tell me that Mims ends up being the fourth most targeted wide receiver on this team, I don't think that'd be really surprising to me at all. Especially considering his skill set. It's going to be a lower volume role anyways, but I could see Patrick, like with what we saw from Patrick today, transitioning into my last stock up here. Man, I am thrilled. The guys with knee injuries, that's my last stock up. The guy, or I should say lower body injuries, because Patrick, I guess, is coming off an Achilles this time.
An Achilles, yeah.
But, yeah, guys with devastating lower body injuries, stock up. Javonte, only saw a bit of him. I was really excited with what we saw. He had that one run, ran through some contact, showed some good burst. It was very small sample size here. I'm trying to see. Yeah, he had 4 carries, only 15 yards. But that 7-yard carry, I'm excited. I'm excited about it. Tim Patrick had that catch. He immediately got the 15-yard penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct. But who can blame the guy? It was a great 14-yard snag. I thought
crazy that's a penalty.
It really is. They need and
crazy
football too. Lighten it up. Unsportsmanlike conduct is fun. I'm sorry. It's fun. I enjoy it as a fan. This is a money-making enterprise that is about entertaining the fans. Why are we trying to crack down on all that stuff? I know it's to prevent fights. It's not like we had some Malice at the Palace situation that we needed to really crack down on. It never made sense to me. The Hockley's got to go, says D Bronx. I'm fully with it. But yeah, I thought Javonte looked good. I thought Tim Patrick looked good. Greg Dulcich had a moment today. He's been looking good all training camp. Kind of got up and was a little beat up. But man, I'm feeling optimistic. If the Broncos get 2 of those 3 guys back as like the contributors they used to be, that is game changing for this offense. So I'm excited there.
Huge. Yeah, and one thing that's important thing to keep in mind too is like Sean Payton does like to spread the ball around. Like he will usually have his number 1 alpha receiver, which will be Sutton this year. But like other than that, like Patrick is going to get his share of targets. Dulcich is going to get his share of targets. Reynolds is going to get his share of targets. So like we need other people to like show that they can create separation. Especially for a young quarterback. Like if I'm assuming Nick ends up being the starter. you don't want a bunch of guys that are covered all the time. Like if Patrick isn't back from his Achilles fully, or Reynolds just isn't getting separation, but it looks like they will be able to do that. And so that's huge. And Dulcich, I mean, if he can just be productive, give us like 500 yards. Like, when's the last time that we've had that out of the tight end position? It was probably Noah Fant, and so it's over 2 years ago. And so I agree. The pass catchers had a good day today.
Fully agree. How low wattage Troutman was last year, I think, is wildly underrated. This Troutman played every game last year. I think actually that might be wrong. He might have missed a game or two, but played almost every game last year at the least, and had less receiving yards in that season than like AJ Derby did in that one season when he was cool for like a December. Like
that's a name.
Troutman barely hit 200 receiving yards playing 16 games. He was like good for like 10 yards a game. They had nothing out of that position. If Dulcich can give them even a little bit, again, I don't think anyone should bank on getting 17 games out of Dulcich, but if he gives you 7, those 7 games are, I don't know, tremendously different in terms of what the quarterback is working with his receiving core, because Troutman is such a zero.
Absolutely.
And Dulcich has legitimate juice. I love this comment. I love this comment from Burgundy saying Dulcich took a few big hits and didn't get hurt. His stock is way up now, because I do think there's some truth to that. That first throw that Nix made was a bit of a hospital ball. He was right into a hit. It was a very good hit, and he got right up and was still trotting around and looking good. The Broncos need some good Greg Dulcich. I'm feeling optimistic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Joey Richards making fun of Troutman break a tackle challenge. Difficulty level impossible.
Would he even start on our like flag football team in Colorado that you guys do? I don't know.
No, I don't know. I mean, I say that, but then I'll tell you this. One time Mario had Cody Latimer come out, and Cody Latimer was like all-time quarterback except for one play. One play that he like was like, throw me a screen. And it was like, I felt like I was playing against Tyreek Hill. Like it was, and Cody Latimer was never a receiver, but it was just like this guy who's like a good XFL receiver. It's just, you see that, and it's like, which of course, like, and like, of course we knew it was going to be embarrassing, but then you see it and it's still like, oh, this is ridiculous. I felt like a 4-year-old again, like at a summer camp, like playing tag with the counselor,
trying to like chase your dad or something like that. Yeah, exactly.
Like, and they're toying with you. He literally was toying with us. It was, man, that was point being, Troutman could be out there. He would cook us off. But for the sake of a joke, I'll say no. Jacob, any parting thoughts you have for us before we get out of here?
No, it's been exciting to be here with you guys for the first time. I had to calm my nerves a little bit, but I think I'm good to go. This is fun, and just really excited for what's next, man. Like, because I don't know if we even talked about it, but Bo Nix was also not sacked the entire time, and Lord knows how many times Russ was sacked last year. So it's like, I'm just excited to see some nice, good, efficient, on-time football that isn't based on backyard, extending plays and stuff.
Yeah. It's real NFL quarterbacking, folks.
Exactly.
And the Broncos haven't really had that. Even like, forget the Russ stuff. They haven't had that in so long. There's a lot to be excited about. Everyone, check Jacob out at JTR_14 on Twitter. He's going to be writing for us over at letstalkbroncos.com. He's definitely going to be on the show more after this. Jacob, you killed it, my man. This was a great debut. You are definitely coming back on here.
Thank you.
Where else can people find your work? I want to make sure I promoted everything you got going on.
Twitter's the main one, because I have an Instagram, but that's for family and friends. I don't really post any work. Exactly, I don't really post stuff on there. So yeah, Twitter's the best spot.
I'm the same. I have some Broncos fans, and shout out to you guys. I'm not offended by it at all, but I've got some Broncos fans requesting to follow me on Instagram.
Yeah,
I'm never going to accept it. I'm sorry, guys. I love the support, but that's a private social media for me. But everyone, check out Jacob on Twitter. Well worth the follow. This guy's going places. He's going to be the next Patrick Smythe before you know it. Until next time.